Welcome back to Record Rift, where we tear through history's pages to reveal the moments that shaped our world. Today, we're plunging into October 1962, when the Cuban Missile Crisis brought humanity to the edge of nuclear annihilation. Picture a young President Kennedy facing off against Soviet Premier Khrushchev, with missiles in Cuba ready to strike and warships closing in. This wasn't just a Cold War standoff, it was 13 days that held the world's breath, a test of nerve that could have ended it all. How did we come so close to doomsday? Who pulled us back? Join us as we unravel the Cuban Missile Crisis, a saga of fear, diplomacy, and survival. Let's step into the tension. By 1962, the Cold War divided the world between the United States and the Soviet Union, locked in a nuclear arms race. The US had missiles in Turkey and Europe, threatening Soviet cities, while the Soviets lagged in intercontinental ballistic missiles. Cuba, under Fidel Castro's communist regime since 1959, became a flashpoint after the failed US-backed Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, which aimed to overthrow Castro but left him defiant and aligned with Moscow. Seeking to counter US superiority and protect Cuba, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev secretly shipped nuclear missiles to the island in summer 1962. The stage was set for a crisis that would test leaders, soldiers, and ordinary people caught in a global showdown. The crisis erupted on October 14, 1962, when a US U-2 spy plane photographed Soviet missile sites in Cuba, some capable of hitting Washington, D.C. in minutes. President John F. Kennedy, briefed on October 16, faced a dilemma: ignore the missiles and risk Soviet boldness, or act and risk war. His advisors, the Executive Committee, EXCOM, debated options: airstrikes, invasion, or a blockade. Kennedy chose a naval quarantine to block Soviet ships, avoiding the term blockade to sidestep war declarations. On October 22, he addressed the nation, revealing the missiles and demanding their removal, stunning a public like Mary Johnson, a Chicago mother who feared for her children. The world braced as Soviet ships approached the quarantine line. From October 22 to 28, tension gripped the globe. U.S. forces went to DEFCON 2, the highest alert short of war, mobilizing 1,400 bombers and 180 ships. In Cuba, Castro prepared for invasion, while Khrushchev denounced the quarantine as piracy. On October 24, Soviet ships halted short of the U.S. line, easing fears, but missile sites kept expanding. Tensions peaked on October 27, Black Saturday, when E-2 was shot down over Cuba, killing pilot Rudolf Anderson, and a Soviet submarine, B-59, nearly launched a nuclear torpedo after U.S. depth charges. Vasily Arkhipov, a Soviet officer, refused to authorize the launch, averting catastrophe. Secretly, Kennedy and Khrushchev exchanged letters, with Attorney General Robert Kennedy meeting Soviet Ambassador Anatoly Dobrynin to negotiate. Resolution came on October 28, when Khrushchev announced the missile's removal, citing Kennedy's pledge not to invade Cuba. Unpublicized until years later, Kennedy also agreed to remove U.S. missiles from Turkey. The crisis ended without bloodshed, but its 13 days saw 200,000 U.S. troops mobilized and millions worldwide, like London student Peter Evans, glued to radios, fearing Armageddon. Castro, furious at being sidelined, accepted the deal, while global relief was palpable. The U.S. lifted the quarantine on November 20, and Soviet missiles left Cuba by December. The crisis's cost was minimal, Anderson's death and heightened fears, but its stakes were humanity's survival. The Cuban Missile Crisis reshaped global relations. It exposed the fragility of nuclear brinkmanship, prompting Kennedy and Khrushchev to establish the Moscow-Washington hotline for direct communication. The 1963 Partial Test Ban Treaty, banning atmospheric nuclear tests, followed, a step toward détente. In the U.S., Kennedy's leadership boosted his prestige, though his assassination in 1963 cut short his legacy. In the Soviet Union, Khrushchev's retreat weakened him, leading to his 1964 ousting. Cuba remained a communist stronghold, its alliance with Moscow solidified. Ordinary people, from Havana to Moscow, resumed lives forever marked by the fear of those 13 days, their stories captured in letters and diaries. The legacy of the Cuban Missile Crisis endures as a stark warning of nuclear peril. It inspired films like 13 Days and books like Robert Kennedy's memoir, Capturing the Tension. Declassified XCOM tapes and U-2 photos, now in museums, reveal the crisis's intensity. The hotline and arms control treaties shaped Cold War diplomacy, reducing risks of miscalculation. The crisis's lessons, about restraint, communication, and the human cost of escalation, resonate in modern geopolitical standoffs. Sites like Cuba's missile bunkers and Washington's Kennedy Library preserve the memory of a world on the brink. The Cuban Missile Crisis wasn't just a standoff, it was a moment that taught humanity to step back from the abyss. That's the pulse-pounding saga of the Cuban Missile Crisis, 13 days that nearly ended the world. What do you think? Could cooler heads have prevailed sooner, or was the crisis inevitable? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and tell us what historic drama you want us to explore next on Record Rift. If this journey through 1962 gripped you, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to join our quest through history. Until next time, keep uncovering the rifts that shape our past. This is Record Rift, signing off.